to you as well. So good morning to everybody as we get situated. Mr. Clerk, we're going to hold number 1 real quick. Just number 2, please.
Under item 2, the mayor submits his request for council approval to extend the temporary appointment of Mr. Phillip Hill as interim general manager of the Los Angeles Convention Center Department. And this would be for an additional 6 months, expiring on June 25th, 2013.
Thank you. Mr.
Good
Hill.
morning.
Good morning.
It's an honor to be here, council members, this morning. I wanted to thank the mayor definitely for this reappointment. We're pretty excited. We have several focus areas over the next several months. 6 that I noted as primary. I won't go over some of the secondaries. But some of the primary ones, of course, is to make sure we have continued good support for our existing events, about 350 events a year. The second one would be really a restructuring, which is already well underway, to be able to support additional citywide events, working with LA Tourism. That was definitely a mayor and council directive, and we are not waiting. We are explosively moving forward on that, and that is going very, very well. The third would be the LACC modernization effort in the event center. We are really hoping to be able to attract the NFL team to LA in the near term, and the big focus is to be ready to construct as early as September, possibly. So a huge amount of work behind the scenes on the constructional platform for the new modernized convention center. The fourth item, these are all the same priority, of course, is privatization and ensuring that we provide appropriate support to the efforts that are moving forward on that. In addition, emergency and disaster management coordination and leadership, that's always something you rarely kind of see, but know it's very active behind the scenes at the center, and how the center supports the region in times of emergency or disaster, and how we coordinate with EMD, California Hospital, Red Cross, and other entities. And finally, continued focus on our youth and education programs. That is a huge focus of the center to ensure that education is enhanced, we can really get students to engage in the classroom. And how do we utilize the center and that campus to improve performance in the classroom? So again, it really is an honor, and it continues to be a pleasure to work with the team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Hill, for agreeing to move forward and serve the next several months, and thanks for your leadership on this. My question is, what have you done since assuming this role? And yeah, I didn't have to ask that question. Tell me a little about your youth and education progress and programs at the convention center. Can you elaborate more on you opening the doors to the school districts and nonprofits?
Yes. We have a program we call the Get in Touch with Your Future program. And the real core idea is to expose students to something they don't see in a classroom, and to really get them to engage in the classroom, and to also energize instructors. Schools like Santee High School, working heavily with the high schools and the elementary schools, but more importantly, West Los Angeles College, LA Trade Tech, culinary programs, West Hollywood base of the cooking academies. You know, how do you make a soup base for 5,000? So really, how do you use the assets of a convention center and the special programs at a convention center to engage students so they become requesters of information in the classroom?
Keep in mind, at the LA Harbor College, you have this great culinary arts program. Please, I'd like for you and your team to reach out to LA Harbor College and include them in that program.
We will do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, first of all, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You having fun over there?
Have a what over there?
Fun.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
That's the key.
Yes.
I like everything you just said. Obviously, you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing. And we want to get to the point where we have 2 teams and multiplier effect downtown, and that convention center really hums within the new future plans we have. So, and you're a good soldier, and you're following through on every step you've been asked to do. So, again, I want to thank you for your interim leadership, the confidence that you have in us and we have in you in watching you operate. And I am a big believer in the convention center being part of the solution going forward, not only with the AEG, but with downtown and everything else, and you're going to make it happen. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, I appreciate all that you've done, and it's just, Mr. Buscaino said, you answered a lot of questions there, especially on emergency preparedness. Just this last weekend, though, I just flashed on something, and I didn't mean to use that word, but there's flash mobs and malls and street fights, and So often you have large crowds there. I hope you look at that, the interior, because I know you were talking about the global emergency crisis of earthquakes or otherwise, but just in now use in public buildings now, it's a new phenomenon that has taken place there. So if you could look at that, I think it was in Minneapolis or something like that, where they had something that was a little strange.
Yes, sir. That is something we've already basically been exposed to and are addressing for near-term events, actually, whether they're planned flash mobs or those that are not. One of the keys to that is really social media and how we get a leg up and have early intelligence of what's going to happen by close monitoring of the social media channels and therefore being able to react before it happens.
Right, and then the next question, is the parking revenue from the Laker Clipper games, what do we usually get a year on that?
It is definitely, I don't have the exact numbers of how much specifically from that, but it is a bit down, as would be expected.
Right, but is it $1 million over the course of a year in parking revenue?
That'd probably be about right, yes.
About right, that'd be good. Well, thank you on everything that you do. And the last tough question, you're the captain of the ship there, right?
Yes, sir.
But the ship's going to be re-inaugurated or recommissioned
Yes, sir.
sometime. What happens to you as captain?
My focus really is interesting. I haven't thought about that much. We're here for the residents, and we're going to really take the city up another level. So
I got that, but think about it. There's a lot of non-working captains in Pedro who brought ships into port, and you want to make sure we take care of you and be part of it in some way, so keep us informed, because you've been an asset. Is that a right thing to say there, Joe?
Absolutely.
I love the guys in San Pedro and all the men and women at the port, but I just want to make sure that there's some component of structure that has your talent and skills still involved.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So we all unanimously recommend approval.
So moved.
Madam Clerk, but forgive me, Madam Clerk, I want to call you correctly. Madam
CLA.
CLA, very good. All right, got it, okay. All right, now, we're going to go a little faster right here. I think is Mr. Buscaino, Phil, thank you very much. 3 and 4 are the same, right? Is that correct? Close to the same? Are
No,
any of these controversial?
no.
Let's take 3 and 4.
3 is a foreign trade zone operating agreement requested by Quicksilver Incorporated, which wishes to operate a warehouse and distribution center on Site 20C in Mira Loma, California. The operating agreement would have an initial term of 5 years with 3 renewal options for 5 years each. The operator would pay $5,000 per year for administrative costs to the Harbor Department.
Very good. CAO.
Alvin Newman, CAO's office. As the CLA has stated, this is approval of a new FTZ operating agreement for 5 years initially and for 20 years over the contract, the life of the contract.
Good. And
Good morning, council members. Mike DiBernardo with the Port of Los Angeles. Yes, this is for Quicksilver, which is the clothing company, which just came to us recently and wanted to start their operations out there in Mira Loma and make it an FTZ site.
in Mira Loma in Riverside County? Right. Make sure the port puts out a nice press release for the Riverside Press Telegram to express how the Port of Los Angeles reaches deep into the Inland Empire and make a nice statement. Have a nice quote for the councilman of the 15th in there, too, so.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Any questions? Recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under item 4, the Board of Airport Commissioners submits the First Amendment to a contract with Total Airport Services, which is a contract for maintenance and repair of passenger boarding bridges at Ontario International Airport. The amendment would extend the existing 3-year term by 6 months, expiring in July of this year, and it would increase the compensation authority to cover that period, and would add provisions for compliance with city's restrictions on contractors' campaign contributions to city officials.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bill Kreitz with the CAO's office. The reason that we're recommending that you approve this item is that it provides, it helps the Department of Airports avoid any gaps in service while they either select a successor company to handle the maintenance and repair of the passenger boarding bridges, or it allows them to transition the maintenance and repair to a consortium of airline tenants with the idea that that will likely improve efficiencies. So we're recommending approval of this.
Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports. I think they've said it all. We're asking for a short-term extension of this contract.
Very good. Mr. Buscaino? Mr. Rosendahl?
Yes, if it's okay to ask this. We're in good discussions right now, figuring out the future of our regionalism, how things go and don't go. There's been, the latest discussion has been about Metrolink being very close to Ontario, and how in 20 minutes you could probably get downtown with the Metrolink from Ontario to help get that multiplier effect going for those hotels. With that as a backdrop now happening, and LAWA moving in the direction it is, fantastic with the modernization, the way it's been going. Can you see that happening, or where do you see that discussion going about the Metrolink?
Metrolink, what we've done in the past, we worked with the local transit operator out there to provide a link. We tried this in the past between the Metrolink train and the Ontario airport, if that's what you're speaking of. And it wasn't terribly successful because really the times of the trains versus the times of the flights, the Metrolink isn't a frequent service like the light rail.
Right.
It's just more commuter service. And the service between the Metrolink station and Ontario Airport wasn't very popular. But I mean, we certainly can and should look at that again. It was a couple years ago, so I think.
Well, we should, and we could. And as Mr. Labanja said, the future is right on the mark. The exciting thing that I now know that I've confirmed with the mayor is that the Expo line or the Metro line or the Measure R, all these projects that are now happening rather beautifully under his leadership, that he does have the ability, and the MTA board has the ability, to say Metrolink will hook you into Ontario now. I know that from Santa Barbara up to our wonderful Palmdale, over to San Bernardino, and also to Palm Springs, they're all looking forward to that link. Mm-hmm. And when it's been mentioned, they said, that's a no-brainer then for us. So I've suggested to the mayor, he look at the Metrolink strategy by saying, take the link to Ontario, be downtown in 20 minutes. So this will complement the 40 minutes from LAX it'll take, I think, by the time we get it into Central Terminal, both the Crenshaw and the Green Line. So you can get 40 minutes out of LAX, 20 minutes out of Ontario. Anyhow, that's my mantra going forward, and I just wanted to say it on the record and just get your initial response to that.
Understood. Good. I think it's something worth looking into, yes.
Mr. Rosendahl, if I was whoever I was to be.
You are who you are, Tom.
I got it, but if I was whoever I was to be in the future, I'd make the Green Line. I'd make the Green Line high-speed rail and go straight through from LAX through Orange County, through the Inland Empire. Their problem is this rail line is on the east side of Ontario, not the front side of the airport, but on the east side. Is that correct, this line?
There's actually the Riverside and the San Bernardino Metrolink lines. One runs on the north side, one runs on the
north
south
side. Yeah.
But neither of them is very close. You do need some sort of a transit connector
system.
between.
But anyway, high-speed rail will get you 20 minutes. I think if you get from Ontario to L.A. in 20 minutes, you're going to get a CHP ticket, unless you're on there. But anyway, we're going to go ahead with this. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm glad you're receptive to it.
I'm very receptive. So moved. The next item right here, item number 6.
We would be going to 5.
5, okay, I jumped
would
ahead of
you
you,
like
just
to
to
do
test
7?
you. Okay.
Would you like
We'll
to do
recommend
7?
approval on 4, and then we go to 5.
All right. Under
right.
item 5,
Yeah.
the Airport Commission submits an amended and reinstated concession agreement with Delaware North Companies Travel Hospitality Services to provide for continued food and beverage concession services at LAX in Terminals 1 and 2, the Tom Bradley Terminal and the Theme Building, as the management of those concessions are transitioned from LAWA to the new terminal commercial manager. The proposed agreement would have a term of 2 years with 3 one-year extension options. The agreement would generate concession revenues for LAWA of at least $1.6 $1.65 million in the first year.
Very good. Mr. Buscaino?
No questions.
No question. Mr. Rosendahl, excuse me.
I always got to think of something, right? No?
Right.
So when you add up what you just mumbled, what does this mean?
Mark Adams, Los Angeles Port Airports. What this means is Delaware North currently operates concessions at a number of sites around LAX. And as we roll in Westfield under the two agreements that were approved last year, what we now need to do is keep Delaware North's operations going at these various sites. What this will allow us to do is keep Delaware North going, and then once a site is ready to be claimed by Westfield, we'll have a 30-day option or 60-day option to turn the site over to Westfield as they're, throughout the terminal. And this also includes the Encounter restaurant as well. Includes.
Is there any problem with that, or do they have problems with it?
No, they don't. In fact, I think we finally worked out a good agreement that everybody can live with on this.
Well, I like it then. If everybody can live on it and it'll work, why not?
Very good. Thank you for the question, Mr. Rosendahl. And no other further questions? Recommend approval, unanimous. Next item is 6.
Item 6, the Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval a lease and license agreement with Korean Airlines on behalf of the Sky Team Alliance for the development and operation of a premier passenger lounge in newly constructed space in the Tom Bradley International Terminal at LAX. The lease would have a term of 10 years, would generate close to $1.1 million in rent revenues for LAWA in the first year, approximately $11 million in revenues over the 10-year term.
Kamsahamnida.
Yes.
Okay.
Council will recall, committee will recall you approved the Air New Zealand lease for one of the other airline consortiums last year. This is the Korean lease for the Sky Team Alliance, and so it's one of the 4 leases there's 2 more leases coming down the road for the different airline groups that will be setting up the lounges in Bradley Terminal.
Good. Any questions? No questions.
Sounds great.
No questions. Just 2 things. One, make sure they have Busan somewhere prominent in their lounge. Busan's a sister city of Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
And tell the Kiwis they got to put up Auckland, because that's a sister city. Just one little thing in there. There just could be a little sign.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So ordered.
Okay.
Now, that gets us to the next item.
Do you want to do item 7?
I was going to do 7 first, and then we're going to go back to the other here, so this would be
Okay.
great. And,
Under item 7, we have consideration of motion Labange Alarcon, introduced on December 16th, 2011. It proposes that the Police Department, Office of Finance, City Attorney, CAO, and CLA report on the costs and impacts of piracy activities on the city's economy and report on any possible mitigation plans.
Very good.
Sir, Captain Lizarraga, I'm representing Detective Bureau as well as Detective Support and Vice Division. Lieutenant Shields and Detective Ishitani are ready to address the issues that were addressed in the motion, so I'll turn it over to them.
Super.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Ricky Shitani, and I'm the supervisor of the Piracy Unit. And I'm going to be asking...
Lieutenant, you're a lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant here, sir.
Is this a
I'm
field
going to make him
promotion?
You
lieutenant.
just promoted him.
That's great. That's wonderful.
okay. I'm retiring in 2 months, so.
Okay, good.
That's perfect. Well, to answer your requested question, sir, the Los Angeles Police Department Piracy Unit was established back in 2004. And since then, we served 253 search warrants and arrested 749 people. A total amount of recovery was $135 million. Now, year to date for the whole year of 2012, we served 40 search warrants, arrested 109 suspects, and recovered $14.25 million worth of intellectual property merchandises, CDs, and DVDs. And the 109 suspects that I'm mentioning about are not just your street vendors in the city of Los Angeles. These are major distributors and manufacturers. Since 2012, we've partnered up with most of all federal agencies, including, not limited to, the FBI, FDA, the United States Border Control, and...
Are there any private entities as well that you partner up with?
Yes, we do partner up with investigative consultants, and they basically have a relationship with 98% of all major brand owners, and that's including pharmaceutical, such as Merck, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble. And for the next question, in our 2013 goals, we're wanting to continue to partner up with the federal agencies, and we're in the process of having all members of the Piracy Unit being cross-deputized as FBI agents. So now we can not only prosecute these individuals in a state level, but above and beyond that to a federal level. As the board knows, our lenient judicial system, the suspects pretty much laugh at us every time we arrest them. But when we indict them with a federal judicial system, they have to complete 80% of their terms in sentencing. With that being added, our second goal is to public education. The members of the Piracy Unit continuously in 2012 went around to middle school. We pretty much thought high school is too late, so we targeted middle school children talking about how piracy, intellectual property goods are bad, and how they fund gangs, organized crime, and terrorism. Most average major distributors in counterfeit or intellectual property world, they profit anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 a month, and that's an average. And this is confirmed with our investigation through our pay-and-O sheets and investigation through their bank account. So they make a lot of money. And we're not talking about the street vendors on the public sidewalk that are selling. Those individuals' average profit margins are anywhere from $800 to $1,200 a week. I'm LA Unified, but that's still $4,000 a month that they're profiting. And these are just your regular street vendors. And the way I see this to the board members is that it's consumer demand, it's public education. As you guys know, that in the narcotics world, there's only that certain percentage of society that abuse narcotics. When it comes to intellectual property, everybody in this board, in this room, loves nice stuff. I don't know when the last time you guys went to go watch a movie, but it's pretty expensive. If you go down to Santee Alley and purchase the new Zero Dark 30 for $5 and have your own popcorn at home, the whole family enjoys it, instead of spending approximately $40 for a whole family, plus popcorn and a
When was
drink.
the last time were you on Santee Alley? It seems like you've seen the movie. No.
Yes, sir. But our overall goal, again, is to continue partnership with the federal government and also educate the public. We were fortunate enough to be featured in CNBC Crime Inc. twice in 2012, also featured in Hollywood Reporters magazine and the Wall Street Journal in D.C. So we want to make sure that we're addressing all these issues, especially with Crime Stoppers. That's our new partnership that we established, and they broadcast that over all the popular radio, such as KISS FM, Power 106, the individuals that are most likely to pirate these items.
Well, good. Let me ask the lieutenant, because the benefit of service, how many years with the city now?
30, sir.
30 years. Daryl Gates was the chief when you came on the job?
Yes, sir.
And so tell me, just don't worry, no one's going to write you up. Tell me what we got to do, because this is a very challenging problem, because it's unfair, unethical, but as the soon-to-be lieutenant someday stated, many people, you know, obviously there's a certain people who are have the challenge of narcotics in this area, but a lot of people say, oh, I got this down on Santee Alley, and it's no big deal. What do we need to do? And I think if you would say estimate, if we say it's 1 point, how much was the total amount? 132 million or
135 million since the unit's been established.
135 million, but do you think it could be $1 billion of goods? It's out there? I mean, much more.
Probably a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, right.
Councilman Labange. We work, as you say, with the FBI, Borders of Protection. We go down to the containers, work at the Port of Los Angeles as well, trying to infiltrate these possessors and suppliers of the demand product.
Right.
We do purses, we do all the intellectual property crimes as well.
They still have a good housekeeping seal? I don't know if anybody remembers that.
well-
You're too young to remember that, Joe.
I got to be honest with you, I think for every one container they check,
Yeah.
they probably 100 get through.
But is there still a good housekeeping seal? Does anybody remember that?
Yeah, still, UL.
Yeah, UL. Very good.
Underwriters
Underwriters Laboratory, yeah.
And that's one of the problems is when they make the intellectual property, they'll make a tool, and instead of being like 12 gauge material in it for wiring, they'll put 18 or 20 gauge and it'll blow up or explode on the consumer.
Right.
A lot of this has to deal with getting the word out, education, and the media, which we
Right.
religiously do.
Should we have postings at our Home Depots and Ballard Hardware and small neighborhood good value hardwares just to say, remember?
Billboards.
Underwriters Lab was all about protection. I think it was all about fire. It was all about New York and the conflagration of fires in the 1900s to make sure that there was a standard that we live by in building codes.
Well, the problem is you can even go down to Santee Alley and Duracell batteries, which is a pretty good battery. Well,
Right.
they'll sell packs down there, a whole pack that's like $18, $20 at Home Depot for $4 or $5, but it's not real Duracell.
But they
That's
print
the
it,
problem.
they print it,
Oh, it looks exactly.
Yeah.
UL on there, everything, sir.
Counterfeit.
It's amazing.
right,
You know, that's just one item of many thousands.
yeah. You, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to put on my senior lead hat on here. So we want to get to the root cause of the problem. So the root cause of the problem is also the printing of the machines. Have we identified where the bulk of this operation or these operations are occurring?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, I'll let Detective Ishitani answer that. But yes,
Thank you.
we target that, but
Okay, great, thank you.
99% of all the hard items are manufactured in China. And with the partnership with the FBI, they do their best to target those locations. However, once they do identify a location, they will respond. The China government will respond to it. However, there's thousands of more manufacturers located, and they drive the China economy. And if the government takes down a manufacturing plant in China, then their citizens are out of a job. So they kind of put a blind eye. And we were invited to Korea, Brazil, as part of the United States Embassy to train law enforcement on how to identify and conduct investigations. However, we have not been invited to China yet.
Well, we could get an invitation for you. We'll do that. We're a sister city with Guangzhou, who would work our sister city program. It is a challenging problem. Mr. Carter, your great experience in many areas of law enforcement as a chief of the city attorney's office.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Councilman Buscaino, and nice to see you again, Councilman Rosendahl. Happy New Year. Yes, in my previous life, I was a federal prosecutor for 14 years. I spent a considerable amount of time prosecuting what we called smuggling cases, and primarily they were smuggling counterfeit goods. Those counterfeit goods could be anywhere from Microsoft software to Oakley sunglasses. And it's a huge problem. It is a huge problem. I know on any given year there are $60 billion worth of counterfeit goods in California alone at any given time. Just in 2012, that was the estimate I heard, $60 billion of counterfeit goods circulating throughout the California economy. And what that means is we've got the estimate is about $8 billion of revenue, tax revenue that would normally go to California governments is lost because those things are not being paid at the fair market value. And what we're looking at, the top 10 categories of seized counterfeit goods are pharmaceuticals, health products, eyewear, like Oakley sunglasses, technology components, things that, as the officers were saying, that might go into certain kinds of equipment, electronics, Apple, iPods, iPads, cigarettes, a lot of counterfeit cigarettes out there. And as you know, when real cigarettes are taxed, there's a huge tax on a pack of cigarettes. If someone's buying counterfeit cigarettes, the city or the state doesn't get the tax revenue from that per pack. Perfumes, colognes, batteries, as the lieutenant said, exercise equipment, transportation parts, tires, things like that, auto parts. And as you heard, the vast majority of these items are manufactured in China. And it's more complicated than that. When I was a federal prosecutor, I was part of a team that successfully prosecuted the largest commercial smuggling scheme in U.S. history. This was in 2000. We prosecuted a dozen gentlemen who were in the United States here, U.S. citizens, who had come from and naturalized here in the United States. And they had a scheme whereby they were bringing counterfeit goods through our great port, which is the best run port in the world, I believe. It's a great port, and the only reason we were able to catch these people is because of the great cooperation that we had with the port authorities, port police, customs, FBI, and local law enforcement, because these companies were creating double books. They were claiming they were bringing in very low tariff items like teak furniture, things that didn't have a quota visa, because some of these things are restricted, like textiles and what have you. They would falsify the paperwork and give it to customs and say, we're bringing in furniture. And as Geraldine knows, we've got 14 million TEUs, that's 20 equivalent units a year coming into the port, 20-footers and 40-footers. And when customs, they only inspect 1% of those containers. And how they inspect them, they open up those doors and they look in, and then they do a representative sampling. And if the items are hidden in the back of the container, it's a problem. They can't see it. They run them through their radiological equipment. There's no dirty bomb in there, but we don't know if there are fake eyeglasses or fake garments. The only way we were able to find this is because we'd worked very closely with the port. We found the double books going through trash cans and looking at documents, and we uncovered one scheme alone in 1 year had brought in $100 million of fake goods through the Port of LA. And it's going to take a lot of commitment by LAPD, Customs, FBI, local law enforcement to keep an eye on. Long Beach Police, because I'm not even counting Long Beach, I'm just talking. But it's more complicated than that. As we mentioned, the vast majority of these come from China. And it's not just Chinese companies. These companies are run by the Chinese government, primarily through the Chinese military. So it's going to take, from the top, our two governments are going to have to talk about how do we prevent the Chinese government from manufacturing these counterfeit goods, including entertainment, that takes jobs away from our people here, and say, we cannot have this.
What do they do in Europe? I mean, because sometimes trade restrictions are a little tougher. I don't know why I open. I'm thinking of Le Havre, I'm thinking of Hamburg. Do we know anything in Europe of how they do that?
The vast majority of the work I've done is from China, and it's more complicated than that, because they might actually have counterfeit labels. It may be.
But they're more protection, I think, in Europe, in some parts, at least in Northern Europe, I know it is. I don't know if we got to look at it, but also we need to ask Congress for their help and see what they really want to do to push. And I know it's a big deal with
This is a federal issue.
Right, a big federal issue.
It's got to commit one.
But I like what the officer said, that he was deputized, FBI.
Pretty soon.
Oh, pretty soon?
It'll be the customs. It'll be United States Customs that will do that.
But they were pre-deputized
Yes.
last year.
Last year.
But it expired. So.
Help you, oh, I got it.
So explain that process, and having, because when we did these task forces, DSVD, with the senior lead officers, it was we barely made a dent. And you're absolutely right, Detective. These guys go out, we frick them, and off they go, and they're back out.
Right.
What's the process of having that dual, wearing those two hats, an LAPD officer and including in making them federal agents?
Well, the process basically, or the benefit for the city of Los Angeles is that, like the city attorney just mentioned, we have to stop it at our border / our ports. And being federally deputized allows us to be in part of that port area and board ships
I see.
and actually look into the containers. So we're now only having the ICE guys telling us, hey guys, there's going to be a container coming through pretty soon. This is the container number, let's go. Now we could actually be part of that and board these ships and look into the containers without any probable cause.
How many people in your unit?
We have six personnel. Unfortunately, we're down to 4 right now.
So 4 in a multi-million-dollar problem.
Citywide.
Wait, the other thing too, man, we're getting our street light. They're stealing our copper. There used to be one guy, he retired. He took care of all stolen property. That's one of the challenges. We got to talk to Chief Beck. Where's
Gene Areola?
Yeah, whoever.
And his partner.
Did Gene retire?
Gene is still on, sir.
But what's he work this?
No, he's a part of fraud.
Fraud. He works Commercial Crimes Division.
Commercial Crimes Division, yeah.
Mr. Chair, is there any private dollars invested in this issue here?
We work with
from from all manufacturing companies, the entertainment industry?
And we work with the RIA, Recording Industry Association of America, and
Right.
MPA, which is a Motion Picture Association of America as well. They do have a Crime Stopper type situation with some sort of reward, if I'm not mistaken.
But I
as
would
well.
think that we maybe as a city, collectively, in following your idea, Joe, right there, is say to the industry, okay, just like, God bless the LAPD and the work they've been doing the last several years and the decrease in crime, but if it wasn't for business improvement districts, it wouldn't have happened. Business improvement districts have cleaned up streets. The partnership, very good. And there needs to be a stronger partnership maybe with the industry where they actually put capital into these programs. 4 officers is going to catch anything between here and 2nd Street, and they got another, 212 streets to get to the port. What's the last number? How many streets is that? 220 streets goes all the way down. Harbor City. We keep going. Therefore, I think we need to look at this a little, and maybe I'm going to ask the CAO to study this and hold this, and let's have a meeting and get your great expertise from your background and try to catch you before you're out the door from your expertise and kind of look at this for Joe and then Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just add on the report back to, I want to hear exactly what we're doing at the Port of Los Angeles. I know you briefly mentioned working with the authorities, federal authorities and Port Police, but if you can bring me back some numbers specifically and how these efforts are being undertaken at the Port of Los Angeles and also the airport as well. Because obviously
It's coming through.
we are the gateway. We are the gateway. The majority of this, and Mr. And Bill, you indicated very well in your past experience how the number of these items are coming through our ports. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I could, I wanted to thank LAPD. I know that they've been working very closely with one of our deputies, Kevin Gilligan, who's on their task force, and the LAPD's been great. They've been working with the federal agencies. Over the last, as you've heard from LAPD, these are felonies. These are federal felonies when you're smuggling and bringing counterfeit items into the United States. So they should be handled at a very high level. Felony, and then they go to the DA for felony. We are at the bottom of the prosecution chain. Over the last year, we prosecuted about 25 or 30 people for misdemeanors. We've also handled some civil enforcement actions where Kevin Gilligan and his team have shut down businesses, primarily down here at Santee Alley, that are found to be selling counterfeit goods. And we very much appreciate the effort of LAPD in supporting our office.
Yeah, I just took a complaint the other day from people up in Hollywood, between Highland and Orange, it's a busy foot traffic, and there are people selling material like DVDs and stuff. Are you guys going to do anything about that?
And some people want to buy counterfeit goods. I know,
but we don't want them to sell them on the sidewalk.
Correct. So we have to look at that, and
they say that
the officer said some people, it's one thing to buy illegal narcotics or other things, but there are people out there that are looking to consumers to buy the counterfeit goods.
But don't they impede the public safety on a sidewalk?
Yes, that's a different.
So you got to get tough out there, Mr. City Attorney. We want you to get tough out there.
We've had that conversation with LAPD.
Can I also make a recommendation, suggestion that Congresswoman Janice Hahn, the great former councilwoman, the 15th district, she formed a port caucus, and if we need to really tap into the federal
that's a good job,
is to reach out to her port caucus that she created to see what they can do on the federal end.
And we'll have a hearing out in San Pedro.
Fantastic.
In the morning in San Pedro, in the afternoon in Long Beach. And then back at San Pedro at night. Okay, Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon, or good morning, Bill. Good to see you here. Well, you're talking about a problem that doesn't look too solvable. So we're looking at a ton of money that we lose, obviously. Now, we know the president just held a press conference this morning, where once again he's bringing up foreign affairs and he's talking about the Congress and talking about making a deal. In his re-election campaign, he was very clear about China. And at the highest levels, they need to sit and talk about this counterfeit business. Venice Beach is a victim of it. It's a huge victim of it. We get 113 million people to the beach. And I can tell you that we're having a hard time dealing with the counterfeit issue. It has taken over practically everything again, competing with the people on the east side, but also the quality is what you just described. It's garbage to begin with. So people get a little joy for a few songs or a few listening or watching a movie or something, and then it's over with anyhow. So I'd like it to include Venice Beach and see how far you can take it through the Venice Beach situation, number one. Number two, whatever we can do at any level, obviously, to support what the LAPD has been doing, which has been phenomenal. We want to thank the LAPD, for God's sake, for getting in there and picking up as much as you have picked up so far, though we know it's the tip of the iceberg and it's a drop in the bucket and that kind of thing. What can we do as elected officials to give you the resources and support, Bill Carter, to make this effective?
Well, I think you said the exact appropriate thing. One, our city needs to have a very good and close conversation with the federal administration, with the President Obama's administration, to say, we've got the largest port in the United States,
Right.
third in the world. I think it's 40 or 50% of all the goods in the United States
43% to 50.
come through
Yeah.
our port. And when counterfeit goods come through this port, it affects the port, it affects our security, and it affects the businesses and jobs of our people in this city and this state and most of the country.
Sure.
So this should be a top priority, and there should be high-level negotiations with the Chinese government to have them stop this piracy to the extent they can. But if they can't stop the factories from manufacturing that, they have to stop it at the border. Secondly, to put all this on LAPD is a huge chore. And so we're going to have a conversation with ICE, Legacy Customs, as I call it, other federal agencies, to say, you cannot let these counterfeit goods remain on the street.
Right.
There also has to be a dialogue, as the officer said, with the MPAA, with all the manufacturers, whoever's items are being counterfeited. They have groups within those manufacturing companies that are supposed to be taking civil action against these copyright infringement and other IP. Unfortunately, a lot of the people we catch are at the bottom of the food chain.
Right.
And it's hard to get to the people who are really
The
at
big guys.
And it takes a lot of legwork and investigation that LAPD has to use on other things, violent crime. And that's why you're keeping crime down, because you're focused on gangs and other things. So for the city to have to look at this kind of white-collar crime is very hard, but it is a corrosive crime. I didn't mention all the counterfeit goods. I mean, shoes, they're now importing counterfeit wine. I mean, it is a insidious crime that undermines our people's jobs and quality of life. As you heard from the officer, some of these things are dangerous. And a lot of these things get recalled because they're counterfeit.
Good. I think what I'd like to do is have a 45-day working group internally. I'd like to ask each of us provide a deputy. I'd like Lisa, you to lead this from my office, and we come up with a strategy. And then also, what you said, Joe, is so important about former councilwoman, now Congresswoman Hahn, and the Port Caucus, and look at it. I do have great respect for all countries, especially great respect for China and their friendship we have with them. But this now is the future that we have to look at to be good and fair for everybody. So, Mr. Carter, we want your involvement on that, and all of you as well. And we want you to have a great retirement, Lieutenant. But
April 1st, sir.
April 1st. So we'll get this done before April 1st.
Right?
No kidding
We
on
got
that.
it.
Right. Good day.
So we're going to hold this in committee for 45 days. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your report. The young officer, thank you. Where'd you grow up?
Right here in East LA, sir.
What high
Loyal
school?
Heights.
What high school?
Yes, sir.
Which high school?
Oh, I actually used my aunt's address and went to Montebello School District.
Montebello, okay. Hey, guess what I learned yesterday? I was at the Campo de Cahuenga, a 90-year-old fella, and he told me that Tom Bradley, to go to Polytechnic High School, which used to be on Washington Boulevard, where Trade Tech is, used a fake address to get there because he lived near where Tom did. Interesting enough, because it was a better education at the moment. But anyway, that's enough of LA history.
He's going to go to Montebello Police Department.
No, I know, that's true. Yeah, very good, Joe. Very good. Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. Good to see you.
See you in 45.
Yeah, you betcha. Say hi to Gene Ariola for us, will you? Yes. All right. Now that completes that. We hold that. Dr. Nats, now is our opportunity to hear from the Port of Los Angeles. Call number 1, will you?
Yes, under item 1, The chair has invited airports, harbor, and convention center representatives to report today on their respective annual budgets for the current
Yeah.
fiscal
Bill,
year
come on up.
and the
Mark-
anticipated
who?
impacts on their operations.
Great. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you. Dr. Erie, who is Eric, I believe Erie is correct there, and the University of San Diego wrote a story of LA history and spoke about the importance of all of you plus water and power. It started with water and power. Without water, we're nothing, but because we have the port, because we have the airport, all this independence helps us drive our city. So Dr. Nats, I'm going to ask for you to start. That's a great color you have on, which is good. We have these dull gray on.
It's almost a bumblebee.
You know what to do. Thank you for the great work of your photographers, of your employees, all the way down this wonderful calendar.
Thank you.
So, okay. Thank you, Dr. Nats.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for inviting us here to talk about our budget and our upcoming budget, and it's a great opportunity for us to kind of give you a heads up on what's coming up. As far as our budget goes for next fiscal year, I would say it's probably going to be pretty much the same as this year. We generally have an operating budget of about $215 million, and our capital budget this year is $340 million. Net revenue, we're anticipating about $90 million. Our revenue has been relatively flat. I mean, we're still kind of in the doldrums. Our year-end numbers, we were up 1.7%. So a year ago, we handled 7.9 million containers, and this year we got to 8. So we're just still pretty much flat, and that's why, we're going to be really coming forward with a budget very similar to the one we have. Another thing that's affecting us is our largest customer that operates out of Pier 400 just lost 30% of their business through a vessel sharing alliance agreement. And so that actually, we could actually see a slight decrease in our operating revenue.
Who is that?
That is APMT is the customer at Pier 400, and they're in a vessel, the Merce line, which calls there, is in a vessel alliance, and they don't control all the ships, and so they're kind of in the third tier in terms of controlling those ships, and so they're not coming to Pier 400.
Do we know which one's pulled out?
Pardon me?
Do we know which ships pulled out?
Yeah, it's actually ships that are operated by CMA, and they share the ships, and Merce ships don't get used until they bring on a third string of ships, and there's not enough business for a third string of ships. So there's some dynamics going on in the industry because they're trying to be efficient, but it does mean that cargo can move around, and there's almost no control that we have over it. It's really not one of our direct customers, it's one of their customers. So our goal, as you know, on capital, it's been my goal personally to spend at least $1 million a day on our projects, and we're continuing to do that. As a matter of fact, we're heading for a big push that may be about $1.5 million today. But in order to establish our budget, we kind of back into it. We have some financial parameters. The big driver is keeping our debt coverage ratio of 2.0. And so we run a model and we back into how much we can spend on capital projects. Then we go down our list. All our revenue generating projects are the first priority. And then as we deal with all those, then we add the waterfront projects. So given the fact that our revenue's been kind of flat the past few years, our board audit committee asked recently for the staff to come forward with a report on how we can increase our revenue. And there's one thing I'm going to mention to you that we're moving forward with because you're probably going to hear about it. We haven't taken a general rate increase under our tariff for, many, many years. And we are working with all of the other California ports to implement a general rate increase that ties our tariff to the cost of living increase. And it's a program that we saw put in place in the Pacific Northwest, and we thought it was a good idea. We're going to be going forward and implementing that program this spring, and then July 1st, we'd have our first cost of living increase. There's only one of our largest customers that actually has a cost of living mechanism in their lease. And so this is really important, and you're liable to hear about it because nobody likes to pay more, and so the customers may be approaching us. Right now, under our leases, we have a 5-year compensation reset. Those are difficult. You sit across from your customer and you want them to re-sign the agreement and pay you more, and sometimes those things drag on for years. And so by implementing a cost of living increase that comes up every year along with all the other California ports, it'll really make those 5-year resets almost a moot point. And actually, Councilman Buscaino, we just implemented that in all of our revocable permits and our short-term agreements, and actually we just recently finished updating all the agreements for the stalls in the fish market. So they've all signed on and they all have cost of living increases in there.
Tell me, what kind of money are we talking about?
If we implement this, we think that it will generate an additional $7 million in the first year. It's not that big a difference, but it's when you don't do it consistently over time, you start falling behind. So that's going to be important going forward.
Dr. Nats, as long as it's consistent with the West Coast ports?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, I just want to make sure when you're talking about this, the story about competition and the Suez Canal. And
right.
Deeping it and dredging it and this and that.
Panama Canal, I don't know, Suez Canal, you got to get your geography right, brother.
Brain.
Yes, and really, under our new strategic plan, the big focus is on competitiveness, and we're ensuring that we have to be competitive in a number of ways. That's the focus of everything we do, and we will look at this when that cost of living index is published in March. We will look and see, is it reasonable? Wow. We can actually take exceptions. The board has flexibility to decide, maybe I don't want to do it this year because of the downturn, whatever. There is flexibility built into the system. But we needed a mechanism to make sure that we do, make sure we don't lose ground. There's two big things that face us on the waterfront side, and I know that these will be important to the councilmen. We have two waterfront projects that are going forward. One is called the City Dock Project, and one is the renovation of Ports of Call. The City Dock Project is taking the old pier where Warehouse 1 is, and we're turning it over to the academic institutions that are on Terminal Island, and they're expanding. We've been working with the Annenberg Foundation and other philanthropists to get that project, spin it off and have its own financing mechanism. But we recently learned that the structure of this pier needs a lot of work. It's about 100 years old. It was built to get us ready for the first Panama Canal. So that's a challenge that we'll be dealing with in this next budget cycle. And the other thing is the Ports of Call development. We haven't negotiated the agreement yet, and it's going to be a public-private partnership, and we'll be getting into the developer. I'm sure is going to be looking to the port to make some contribution in that project. So those two things kind of face us coming up. And
Dr. Ness, on those two items, what's the line item? What's the budget for those two line items?
We actually don't have established budgets yet. We're working through that process right now. And we do hold about $32 million in our capital budget going forward for the City Dock project. And that was based on bringing in some philanthropic money to do that. However, most philanthropists like to spend their money on things that are visible, that can be seen, not under the water to repair something. So that's an issue that we're going to be dealing with in the board in the coming weeks. And then Ports of Call will also be something that we need to factor into this budget cycle coming around, even if we're not through with negotiations. So.
Okay. And you mentioned the capital improvement projects that you're spending $1 million a day, which is fantastic. How does that rate compare to other ports across the country?
Oh, I would say, right now, Long Beach is just moving forward with the replacement of Gerald Desmond Bridge, $1 billion project. So we're probably, the two ports, LA and Long Beach, are just so far ahead of most of the other port regions. Some of the East Coast ports have big dredging projects, but that will primarily be federal dollars that come in and do that. We have a couple projects in Wilmington that we're kicking off, the big Wilmington grade separation project. Wednesday, we break ground on a $135 million new rail yard in Wilmington, the Berth 200 project. And so we're probably ramping up for, in about 12 to 18 months, probably spending about $1.5 million a day in our capital budget.
And as I mentioned in the item we had, number 2 there, does your port community outreach media section go to those local papers throughout the Southland and tell them what you're doing, remind people what you're doing, and sometimes even an insert in the Los Angeles Times, and I don't know what or any other daily newspaper,
Right.
Rick Orloff's daily news, all of them are important, that you just tell the people what we do, because people forget.
right.
And you did a wonderful report several years ago, and you had deep into each counter district where it all meant.
Yeah,
So-
right.
And what universities, I know thank you for the tour
Yeah,
that
right.
you gave to the chancellor of UCLA.
Right.
Who's all down there from an academic standpoint?
We have UCLA, we have USC, we have Occidental College, and then we have a whole number of schools from the Cal State system. Long Beach, Fullerton, Northridge, I can't really name them all, but
Well,
there's,
that's okay. Can I ask you to do one thing, Joe?
Yes.
See if you get a community, I was calling him Joe, Dr. Nance, just to say, because give him he come to you, then it's his idea. See, then he can take credit at the end.
yeah.
Let's get the community colleges in there, Trade
And,
Tech.
and they have formed an affiliation with the Southern
Got it.
California Marine Institute.
Marine
Yeah.
Institute. and then
Marymount
the-
College right up the street
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
And let me just ask another question. And I love that building that's in there, and it could be wonderful, like Pier 39, in a way.
Right.
In a way, but in an academic
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Annenberg Foundation.
Yeah.
Is there any space that you could have meeting rooms, like there could be like educational conventions or
Right.
300 seats? Because I know Mr. Rosendahl has always preached a mini convention center out by the airport, and I know, Joe, that's on your list and was on Ms. Hahn's.
Right.
I don't know if we could do a big convention,
Yeah.
but could we do something?
Yeah, and actually, in the proposals that came in for Ports of Call, we did have in there one of the items as a small convention center. In addition, as part of the City Dock project, there's going to be a auditorium, classrooms there. It's not really a convention center, but to support the public outreach and educational uses there as well. So there's two things going on that relate to providing more meeting space.
Let me say, if I may, Mr. Chair, Dr. Nats, thank you so much for your leadership and your team. In the short time I've been here, I'm just really pleased with our ongoing working relationship, and it's a good time to be a council member in the 15th district to see this Port of Los Angeles continue to thrive, in addition to see this waterfront development move forward, and also with the City Dock 1 project, the Cabrillo Marina Way. It's a lot of energy, a lot of synergy going on in the Port of LA. I'm just blessed to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good, Dr. Nats. And I see Molly Campbell there, who's a great former CIO. So it's good you pick team members who have great city experience. Good to see you, Molly. From our Los Angeles airports.
Ryan Yakubik, Los Angeles World Airport.
Yeah, if I could, before he gets in, Mr. Chair, is talk about the port a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you.
I'll never let you get away with that, Tom. You know that. Look, we've been wanting wetland credits for quite a while. Obviously, we've been giving them to people in Orange County for quite a while, historically. Where are we now mentally on giving wetland credits for the Bayona wetlands?
Yeah, we still have a need for wetland credits because we made a commitment to a customer to build Pier 500, and that's like a 10-year project. I'm still waiting for the Bayona project to get through the environmental impact report process, which the Conservancy is doing, and we still have our finger in that pie, and we don't need the credits today. Probably about the time we need it, hopefully will be the time that they're ready to move forward, but that has been a very long process to get through
Will you
that
keep it on your radar screen and report back occasionally on where
Yes,
we are
okay.
with
Right.
credits for the wetlands?
Right. I will.
Because that's really an important issue.
That's for the Bologna Creek.
The Bayona wetland.
Yeah, right.
Bayona,
Yeah,
very good,
right.
very good.
That's the Playa Vista piece
Yeah.
of land that we're talking about, the flush of the ocean and how
Very good.
beautiful it is. See, we only have 5% of our wetlands left, and we have to preserve them.
No.
Put that microphone.
And that's the number one
Right.
project on our list.
Okay, if I can get back to the original question.
Oh.
The mayor had a press conference late at night where he announced the settlement at the port. I was very proud of our mayor, putting his hands in that, jumping in, getting off of planes, getting no sleep, and doing what he did. What lessons have we learned, and will this protect us? Or are we going to find ourselves in a tougher spot 6 months from now? What's your sense?
Yeah, well, and I was there with the mayor in those meetings, and he did a fabulous job. And then the thing at the end, he comes out before a camera looking fresh as a daisy, and the rest of us are like zombies. But, we face a big issue in 2014 when the Longshore contract is up. I think what we can do is, and one of the things that happened during those negotiations is the labor representative, who was the primary negotiator, asked the mayor if he would go in and speak to his members, because he said it was hard for him to explain the big picture.
Right.
And so the mayor did that. And the labor negotiating committee was about 40 people. A lot of them were women. And so he went in there and talked about the big impact on LA of this happening. And I think that was significant in, that ending within, hours of him doing that. So that's part of why the Beat the Canal group was formed, because people need to understand there is a lot at risk. And 2014 is not going to be easy when the whole Longshore contract comes up. And so it's everybody understand what we have to lose. As a matter of fact, I just sent in an editorial to the LA Business Journal about, my worst nightmare, waking up and the port is shut down. And it happened for a week last year. And what are the risks going ahead? What's at stake? And that's what we have to keep reminding everybody.
I really
What is at
appreciate that
stake?
sensitivity. And the last question I have is, so a ship comes in, and let's say it's from China. Are they automatically plugging into electricity to avoid particulate matters being exhausted from their existing fleets? Or how are we dealing with the folks coming into the harbor right now?
Yeah, pretty much. Most of our customers are plugging in. By 2014, we will have 27 berths with the capability for shoreside connection. And so actually the CARB rule will come into effect and that requirement. But of course, we did that. Most of our plugging in was done ahead of that. But yes, it's happening.
So my folks in San Pedro, all of our folks there, their lungs aren't going to be as impacted as it has been.
If you ask some of the local people, and I guess you can ask the councilman this, some of the people say there's been a visible improvement from '05 when we started the Clean Air Plan.
If I can jump in on that, Mr. Rosendahl, my brother-in-law, a longshoreman for many years, 10 years ago, he'd come home with soot on him.
Yeah.
Today, there's no soot when he arrives from a shift work in the docks. It's an amazing turnaround, especially, we want to credit the mayor's initiative on the Clean Truck Program, which had nearly 75% reduction in emissions.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen, our case is going to the Supreme Court now over the idea of having the concessions. And if we lose the concessions, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to really be disappointed.
I just want to say, too, as a daily hiker in Griffith Park, I'm fortunate to see the sun rise. And over the years now, in the belt, if I call it, from Gardena Valley through the hills of Palos Verdes through southeast Los Angeles County, it is not as dark a belt as it once was. But there is the plume that happens. It's not just your pollution, but through the canyons and the winds, they blow and they hang out there, but it's less. So there's a good job in that. And so thank you. On the wetlands, just wanted to remember Ferndale, which is the site of the Tonga Nation, the first Indian tribe in the Ferndale section of Griffith Park. I remember in Mr. Bradley's time, they did a lagoon in San Diego. well, whether it's the Bologna Creek area or something in Griffith Park, or I know Los Angeles River, Sepulveda Basin, use Southland first
Yeah.
if you could.
Right.
So that would be good. All right, we're going to leave the Port of Los Angeles and come up the 405 to Century Boulevard and go west.
Terrific, thank you. Certainly, the capital program, Ryan Yakubik, Los Angeles World Airports. Certainly, the airport's initiatives to improve our facilities and modernize the airport gain the majority of the attention, but in the meantime, we are operating a pretty significant business in the background. Our revenues were projected in fiscal 2013 at $953 million. We are on trend right now to come in above that, primarily due to increases in our duty-free revenues and our rental car and parking revenues.
953, which is 3 times higher than the port, is that correct? Is that about right?
Well, we're about 400, so.
400, okay, got it.
A couple times, yeah. So certainly that's a positive trend for us.
953, $1 billion.
On the expense side of the equation, fiscal 2013 had a budget of $710 million for expenses. We are on trend to come in below that. We're managing those numbers very carefully, much like the port. We have debt covenants that we're looking to meet. We've increased our debt load over the past several years as we have started improving the airport. And so we manage those metrics very carefully. At the same time, we've got to balance taking care of deferred maintenance and taking care of all the things that need to happen while you're running a major international airport. As we look forward into the next year, we've continued to see solid passenger growth. We have inflationary pressures. We have personnel costs. Personnel make up more than 50% of our budget, and those costs are consistently growing year on year. We expect to see some slight inflation-like increases in our expenses going into the budget next year. We've got downward pressure on those expenses to meet our debt covenants. We've got upward pressure as we are serving a greater passenger base and have to deal with new and more modern facilities that have some different needs than our old facilities. Back on the revenue side, we expect to see additional growth. This committee has seen a good deal of the contracts and concession agreements that have come through to replace our concessions at the airport, freshen them up, provide new concepts that will generate more revenue for the airport. We expect to start seeing some of the benefits from that in this next year, so that should start to boost our revenues. At the same time, our airline fees will be going up as some of our cost recovery mechanisms associated with our the airport's recent implementation of a new terminal rate agreement and rate methodology start kicking in higher levels of cost recovery for the facilities that we've been improving. So generally, you'll be seeing our revenue going up. You'll see our expenses going up slightly, not as much, as well as, in the meantime, taking care of a higher debt service load on the almost $4 billion of debt that we have outstanding today.
Does anyone complain about your revenue? I mean, like those who pay for it,
Well,
like the airlines? I think what Dr. Nat spoke of as far as if you don't raise the rates, then they forget about it, and then all of a sudden it's a big rate, and then all of a sudden your giveaway is $7 million turns into,
Sure, and we have a slightly different dynamic at the airports than they do at the port. About 40% of our revenues is generated from the commercial businesses. Those are in-terminal concessions that are directly from passengers, parking, rental car revenues, ground transportation revenues, advertising, things like that. The other half is, of course, the fee-based revenue that comes from the airline operators at the airport. Certainly nobody likes to pay more rent. However, we've spent the last several years making peace with the airlines in terms of figuring out what needs to happen. At LAX in particular, the facilities were in great need of improvement. The airline, we were really able to find common ground with the airlines in a way that says, these facilities need to be improved. We need to produce a better product for our customer. The airlines agreed and are willing to pay a greater amount. This is exhibited by the fact that we offered the airlines a 10-year rate agreement that along with it had significant increases in their rates and fees over that period. And almost every one of the airlines who operate at the airport, in fact, I think there was only one, and I think that was just an oversight, did not sign the agreement. And this is a real This is a real reflection on how the airlines feel about the facility and their willingness to invest in LA and in that facility. So I will by no stretch of the imagination say anybody's happy about increasing rates.
But
However,
you worked through the kinks.
yes, there's a definite understanding
A
that this
Southwest 737 coming from San Francisco, fully loaded, what's it cost to land approximately?
All airlines pay a fee that is based on the weight of the aircraft.
Right.
So a 737 is going to pay, probably a third of the fee of
I
a
know, but
fully
is
loaded
it
747.
$700 or is it $500?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
So
That's
what I want
something
you to do
easy.
for our committee here, find out what a 737 from San Francisco,
That's an easy enough thing for us to do, and we'll get
as
that
opposed to
for you.
737 from Chicago, because Chicago people are a little bigger than San Francisco people. But anyway, 737, then also 747 or 787, a heavy. The
Sure, I'll
biggest
get you
one
a
got.
stratification.
Yeah,
of the
that'd be
different
good. I
size
think you'd
aircraft.
like to know that. Right, okay. Thank you so much. And the other thing, too, have a simple graphic in the terminal, how the airport is paid for. Now, this is very good here, but I mean, but more public, thank you for being part of the partnership with the people, the passengers of Southern California, and what it costs, because people don't know how the airport gets paid for, truly.
Sure.
Education is so important for the public, and the importance of the port as well. Mr. Rosendahl, I'm going to call on you now as...
A couple of three things.
Three things.
First of all, you're doing a great job at the airport. I appreciate everything that's been happening lately. The real question will become how we tie all these airports together. There's no question that LAX, because we are the megalopolis of the planet, from Santa Barbara to San Diego, will always be the number one destination airport in the planet. But that concept can expand to Ontario, because Ontario is part of the megalopolis. It is not an LA-centric. That's where the Chamber of LA falls flat when they think it's an LA city issue. It's not. It's a regional issue. And we're all connected to a region that has been underprovided with public transportation. And we're getting out of the car mentality. We're getting into the cycling. We're getting into walking. We're getting into multimodal strategies. So it's happening. Even these cars that you can rent from one spot to the other and how that goes is all part of the solution going forward. So what I do want us to continue to look at when we look at LAX is the following. $300 million, that's the best news I've heard all month. $300 million you project as potential profit, correct?
More or less. Now that does not just
$300 million done properly, can be part of what incents Ontario. Because the airlines have told me, and I'm sure they've told Gina Marie and anybody who's got a sharp pencil who came from the private sector, that in the long run, when Ontario is incented, they will go nonstop, direct, and frequent and discounted flights to Ontario because it's in their best interest. We're at that tipping point right now. We're about $12 a piece if we want to use simple numbers. But as we continue to spend at LAX and continue to appreciate Ontario, there will be the natural hook. And that's what I'm looking for you when you look at that $300 million to say, what will this do to Ontario to incent it? I don't want to take Ontario off the plate and sell it. I want to be part of a regional strategy for regional solution for a regional issue. And that's all we're dealing with here. So when you report back, I want to get a sense how that $300 million is going to impact Ontario and see if I'm right or wrong. That's all.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, and thank you at LAX. Phil.
Good morning again. Phillip Hill, CEO and Interim General Manager, Los Angeles Convention Center. Next fiscal year will be a good year. We see every about 5 years a little perturbation in the budget as we have some rotation of events to the East Coast. We do see that. We also see a little bit of client uncertainty due to proposed construction. And so we're seeing a little ripple as far as that, but overall things are looking very good. We're focusing our maintenance operations more on the South Complex as we are looking to effectively destroy and build onto the West Complex. And if we look at globally what we're kind of working on now for this next year, it really is a team strategy towards citywide events and how to also work for those large annual recurring events. Also, the alignment of branding opportunities, going for at Los Angeles, at LA Tourism, at LACC branding. How do we align logos? How do we align related websites? How do we align so we look more as one team? And what are the opportunities for rooftop signage so we can attract free advertising from the Blimp's perspective? Whether that be looking at Staples Arena or looking at the new stadium, you want to see that you've got the energy and the vibrancy of LA's convention center right there for that basically international audience that's watching that. So we're looking at those kind
Mr.
of...
Carter's left the room, so the city attorney, I don't know if he's ever been in the Blimp, but they have opinions about that. We're trying to work with them on the signage. Tommy Newman from office
Very good.
is working on that, but that's interesting.
In addition, I'd like to probably also add on the Good Food Purchasing Program. We're about to show you leadership on that. We were pretty instrumental in helping to develop surplus food programs and how it's put together within the city. And so working with the mayor's plan on that, we'll be coming out with something soon to show leadership on that. And of course, LACC modernization. So with that and several other topics, it's going to be a good year for the next fiscal year.
Is there a Sam Yorty Hall there?
A Sam Yorty Hall,
Right.
not as a Yorty, I believe.
What is a Yorty? Is there a Yorty?
We have a Tom Bradley Hall, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And there's nothing for Yorty down there.
I will have to, not as I've seen it in our recent terminology.
Yeah.
Tom LaBonge Hall?
No way, man. No. I just think, no way, man. You got to be dead. I don't want to be dead, right? Okay. No, I was just asking because you're going to just see that. And the other thing, too, on the football stadium, do you have a plan if the football stadium does not come?
The general plan, there is none that has been publicly worked out, but I think everybody's aligned with as we're going to be attracting more citywide events. We need a combination of a convention center that can support that, which is our modernization process, and the hotels. So it would be my assumption that if that did not happen, we would still as a team look forward to ensuring that convention center is positioned to be able to attract the citywides.
Right. I think the big thing is that it has become a place where people are now recognizing, I think LA Live, all that has been positive. But on the stadium, it may or may not come. I don't know. I mean, I've been familiar with it. Got a technical question. Do you ever watch football?
Very rarely. I'm kind of busy these days.
Really? Do you ever see the coaches when they go like this and they call a play?
Yes, I have seen that.
Why do they do this?
I guess because of the lip reading possibilities.
No, the reason I do that, if it is a passing play, it's a much longer play. YXZ, cross, zip, down, 3 on 42. And then if it's a running play, it's a 36 blast on 2. So if you said 36 blast on 2, if it's a short audible, that he gives you, I just wanted to teach you all something since the Super Bowl's coming. You could use this at your parties. That's what they do it for, because you can't read 50 yards away and they're not watching the TV. But Phil, I'm behind you 1,000%. Okay.
I was about to call the question, but if we can, Mr. Hill.
There's 15 microphones. I got one of them. Okay.
Just walk us through the process with the NFL team right now. I understand there's a deadline by middle of February before the NFL decides to bring a team to LA.
My understanding is the NFL teams can submit basically proposals to come to LA January 1 through February 15th. At a subsequent meeting near after that, a determination is made whether or not a team or teams will be coming to Los Angeles. If a team comes to Los Angeles and if City Council so approves, then we are positioned for roughly September time frame for beginning construction on the new hall of the convention center. If NFL does not make the decision at this point, the general process, I believe, is a 1-year delay until the next 1 year later meeting and repeat the process. But we keep working behind the scenes to ensure our development's really tight.
Great. Thank you.
If I could take that, Mr. Chair, on two levels. Right now, we're spending $70 million a year on debt service, correct? How much are we spending a year on debt service for the convention center?
Debt service, I would say about $50 million roughly, I would say.
So we're doing about $50 million out of the general fund. That's less than the $70 million we were paying. So it's going down?
I can't say that
Natalie,
per se.
why don't you
Natalie.
come up and answer this? What is the debt we're dealing with every year now in the general fund? From
$48 million of debt service. Natalie Brill, CAO. And that's the highest it's been. It's between 46 and 48 each year.
46 and 48 million. And our strategy, other than the strategy that we all love, which is get a team in here and let's get this together and make it happen, What do we do if we don't get that team business?
Well, we'll continue to bring in citywides, which will hopefully increase the TOT. Years ago, the voters voted to increase the transit occupancy tax to fund debt service, which is 3.5%. That has 3.5% does not cover the debt service currently on the convention center.
So when we heard the new dates, which was mid-February, we would probably know something?
Yes, sir.
This is a serious moment, right, for all of us, mid-February?
Very much
We hope
so.
we get picked. Assuming we get picked, and we have to take existing teams, which I think is unfortunate, I don't want to upset any other town. I'd rather get 2 fresh teams, create a bigger pie, bigger awareness, and more revenue, and everybody is a win-win. And I'm still pushing that with Patrick, that we go for 2 fresh teams. But let's assume we have 1 team in our hand. Is that enough for us to trigger going forward with the overall strategy?
Yes, it is.
And we feel comfortable that there's no taxpayer burden at all at this point?
No, there will not be. The deal that the council approved was that if they get a team and meet certain conditions, then we can close escrow. And once escrow is closed, they have to go through the building process and get permits and approval for design. Then we would issue bonds this summer, and in September, they would start construction on the new hall. They have to build
And
a
then
new
when we
hall
think of that, we think of affordable housing being part of it, and all those issues that the local people have been bringing up,
That all was done already in Planning Commission
right?
and approved by council.
Right, great. It's all good news, moving in the right direction. Thank you.
I know I see a representative from the mayor's office, if I may, Mr. Chair. What are we doing on our lobbying side with NFL right now, bringing 1 or 2 teams to the city?
Deputy Mayor's here. Come on up.
Are we bringing NFL to the city? What are we doing on our lobbying efforts to get at least 1 team here to the city?
Good morning.
Hello, Nicola Beckett, Mayor's Office. This is really a decision for the NFL. The Mayor's Office has been meeting with different interested parties, but again, it comes down to the decision of the NFL. So to that extent, we're, meeting with them, but again, it's out of our.
And the National Football League is 32 members who will make their decision independently of what we want.
And to Councilman
We love
Rosenthal's request for a new team, I think that that's an unlikely scenario, just given the NFL, but it would most likely be a team currently within the NFL.
Well, we just hope those billionaires wise up and realize they'll have a bigger pie to work with if they let LA get 2 fresh
In a
teams.
perfect
Well, I just
world,
hope they're nice people,
Grow up.
on that. Don't grow up there. Come if you want, but I do know it's going to be tough to make a decision, just how it works. Just think about Seattle yesterday. They had 31 seconds to go,
That's right.
and how they were so excited as a city.
Yeah.
And in the 31 seconds, their lives changed as a city. The great thing about, and I talked to someone in Seattle, what all this does to bring people together,
Right.
Sports teams, and
Yeah.
we're doing on
They
that.
also
So
have
let's
to
not
deal
get our
with
heart
Carroll,
broken.
so.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They have to deal with Pete Carroll, so that's.
Well, that's all right. Pete's a great guy, so, but the emotion of the game and the bringing it together, that's why.
We brought 40, thanks to the Clippers, Tom, we brought 40 kids from Watts to their
love it.
first Clipper game on Saturday.
Right.
And they'll never forget it. It was an amazing experience for them.
And I just want to put a shout out to Billy Crystal, because he was the
That's
lone
right.
Hollywood icon who stuck with the Clippers, and now he's sitting there.
Did you go to the
There
Globe
it
last
is.
night?
Anyway, we're talking way off agenda. This has completed our meeting. I want to thank Dr. Natz and Phil Hill, and I want to say, Ron, correctly, your first and last
Ryan
name?
Ukubic.
Ryan Yukovic, for the team there, and tell Gina Marie we said hello.
Mark
Well,
over there, he's great.
Mark, and we want the CEO to look at this too and keep us
Thanks. It's
updated on that. So this has been very good too, and remember to go beyond the borders, of just this little place here, and talk to the people who are really out there to let them know the good jobs that you're doing. Are there any items on our calendar right now? This completes the agenda. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody, and a good new year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.